Hey, Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more relationship stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. And this story comes from a throwaway account from the Relationship Advice subreddit and says, how do I, 27 female, tell a one-night stand 30s male that I have his kid, one male? Okay, to keep it simple, my son's baby daddy was a one-night stand. He was a trucker who got snowed in. We met at a bar and hooked up. Didn't exchange contact info. I was just bored, lonely, and temporarily insane from the pandemic, and was being risky and stupid as shit, and didn't bother with protection. Love my kid though, no regrets there. Glad I didn't get an STD. When I realized I was pregnant, I thought long and hard about it, and decided to keep him. Thanks Catholic guilt. It's not strong enough to stop me from having sex, but strong enough to stop me from getting an abortion. Lol. Joking, I love my kiddo, and I kept him because I wanted him. I make a decent living. Child support would help, but we can get by without it. I didn't expect to ever see the baby daddy again, and I was okay with that. Kiddo has my last name. I didn't know this. I was fine with being a single mum and dealing with everything myself. To be honest, some of my friends have shit baby daddies, and they and their kids are better off without them. I feel like Kiddo and I are better off on our own than trying to add someone to the mix anyway. At least that's what I told myself. But my friend who works at the gas station just happened to see him. She knows his name and race and saw his name on his ID. The nosy ass made sure to confirm it was the same guy and asked if he remembered me, asked for his number on my behalf and passed it on to me. I'm sure he is flattered, thinking some random hookup talked up his skills to her friends to the extent that they remembered his name. Lol. Anyway, thanks to her nosy ass, I can't claim innocence anymore and I'm forced to make a decision. So, first of all, do I say anything? I know it's technically supposed to be the right thing to do, but to be honest, I've heard so many baby daddy horror stories. It's to the point that if I'd gotten pregnant from a hookup with a guy I'd reasonably expect to see again, but do not know well enough to trust, I might actually abort because I wouldn't want my kid to go through what some kids have gone through. If I say something, this guy can sue for custody or guardianship. I can't bear the thought of letting my baby go to some stranger and not being around. Hell, he can't even talk and couldn't tell me if something happened. Not that I think anything would or that the trucker will want custody in the first place, but who even knows these days? On the other hand, how can I deprive my kiddo of a father? It'd be one thing if, once he was older, I could honestly say I didn't know where his father was, but I can't possibly lie to him about that, and I can't imagine telling him I could have found his father, but I was too scared. So I'm leaning towards telling him, but how do I even do that? Can I just text him the news and get it over with? Should I try to see if he can meet up next time he passes by and tell him face to face? Is there any kind of legal shit I should be aware of with this kind of thing? Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, I went from giving no fucks during the pandemic to giving too many fucks about everything as a mum, and no matter what plan I make, I keep thinking of ways things might backfire somehow, and somehow hurt my kiddo. I know I am way overthinking probably, but please, I just need someone to tell me what to do. But we're starting the comments with Pinebox Waiting that says, you know what this mum would do? I would shag my... What? I would shag my ass to a I'm assuming that's drag my ass unless there's a meaning somewhere else, because in the UK that's a a different meaning. But I'm going to go with drag. I would drag my ass to a family attorney and ask them if there are any compelling reasons to keep your son's dad in the dark. I can think of a... Oh dear, that's thrown me out. I can think of a few. One is that, you know zip about this guy, except what he looks like naked and that he's a trucker. That's it. You have no clue if you want to invite him into your circle. But yeah, I talked to an attorney before I risked exposure. Opie says attorneys are expensive, but I called my cousin in law school and she said she'd look into it for me for the specifics in my state. But she said I don't have any penalty for not telling him, but if I told him he could go to the court to order a DNA test, prove he's the father and sue for custody or visitation. And he would most likely be able to get custody or visitation unless he turns out being totally super blatantly unfit. Vargas says he's a stranger. If it were me, I would not invite an opportunity to have someone I don't know at all take my baby half the time, because he's technically the father who had no choice in the decision to have the baby. Just my personal opinion. Opie replies saying, That's my instinct, but I'm also imagining having to justify to this kiddo later when he asks why he doesn't have a dad. Mediocre Asparagus says, background check sounds like a good idea. See if first of all, he's a decent enough person to so much as consider it. If he does end up being a great person, then your kid gets an awesome dad. If not, you're opening up both of you to a potential threat to your comfort and you might get stuck with him. Ultimately, it's your choice. He doesn't know about the kid. Not finding out won't kill him or hurt him. You have no obligation to tell him, in my opinion. He's the sperm donor, that's all for now. You can choose if he gets to be more than that. I'd also agree with an attorney. See if letting him know could open up to anything. Example, him getting partial custody and shit. Firstly, and if there are any preventative measures. Basically see if you have all your bases covered. Personally, I have no idea what I would do if I was in your situation. At the very least, after you've covered your bases, it can't hurt to meet up and get to know him a bit more. OP quotes the sperm donor bit and says, yep, honestly, I was just seeing that guy as a free sperm donor and no one seemed to have a problem with it, when I didn't think finding the guy was even an option. Now suddenly all my friends are insisting my kid needs to know his dad, which is honestly super shocking to me with how many people we all know with deadbeat baby daddies. I rely on my friends for childcare a lot, so I feel like I can't totally dismiss their opinion. That wouldn't be the deciding factor at all if in the end I still didn't feel right about it. I'm just saying. I owe it to them at least to think about it, you know? I text the guy to see if he was interested in meeting up if he passes by again. He said maybe, I'll let you know. So the first thing is to see if he even does or not. If he doesn't, my other option is to come clean over text, but I'm really leaning against that. My cousin said if I reach out, he could sue for custody or visitation if he wanted, and he would most likely get it. And one more comment from a throwaway account who says it's not fair to deprive your child of a father, but it's also unfair to introduce someone you know nothing about into his life. Is there a way you can get to know him first? So OP did update the post and says this was my first post and shares the link. Didn't get a lot of comments, but I wanted to let you guys know how it turned out. I forgot my password for my first throwaway, so I had to make a new one, but it's still me. So a while back I posted here asking for advice about how to tell my baby daddy I have his kid. After figuring out how to run a background check and seeing no criminal history, I thought I would try to get to meet him, do a vibe check and see if he seems cool. Hook up with him again if I need to in order to get to know him. Lol. Anyway, turns out I didn't need to go that far. The guy texted me that he was stopping by in town. We met up for breakfast. I was like, cool, promising. Breakfast usually doesn't lead to a hookup, so he actually wants to get to know me, which makes it much easier for me to get to know him. We made some typical casual date small talk. Then he asks, do I have kids? I tell him 1. He asks how old. I say 1. He's like, is he 1 and 1 month? He figured it out on his own. My friend who never met him recognized him by his name and insisted he get in contact with me. Apparently he was like, it's either a baby or a very serious STD. So I just came clean and told him everything. I haven't introduced him to the kid yet, but I showed him a picture. He agrees that kid is the cutest kid ever and looks like him. We are getting a paternity test. He's definitely the baby daddy because he's the only Asian guy I've been with and kid is definitely part Asian. But I don't blame him for checking since I know some women will lie about things like that. He doesn't seem like he doesn't believe me. He just wants to make sure, which is fair. Baby daddy says if kid is his, he's fine with paying child support and just having supervised visitation until I trust him more. He lives in his truck apparently, so no judge would give him any custody until that changed. So that's how it is. I didn't really get the choice to decide on my own terms whether to introduce them or not, but so far it all seems to be working out. Someone asks OP, they said, what's your end goal here? OP says, not sure I have one really. Just taking things as they come. I didn't expect him to figure it out on his own, and it kind of ruined whatever plans I have. It'd be nice for kid to know his dad, assuming his dad is a decent person. I have no reason to think he's not, I'm just cautious, and some child support money wouldn't hurt. I support him on my own with some help from friends for childcare, but I could buy some nicer treats for kid and start a decent savings account for him with child support. An additional comment that OP added giving extra information and said, a lot of people are struggling to understand why I was so worried about my baby daddy. I will use whatever words I want to use, y'all can deal, and whatever risk he might pose to my son, and why I would trust a guy enough to have sex with him but then not want him around my kid. I imagine a lot of you aren't parents, but let me try to explain. My son is 1 year old. He's totally helpless. He's totally dependent on me. I care about him way more than I've ever cared about myself. I used to ride a motorcycle. Do I anymore? No, I sold it because I didn't want to leave him without a mum. I used to hook up with strangers. Do I anymore? No. Taking risks is a completely different ballgame when I have someone else to worry about besides myself. And also, I have no time for that. Lol. Every single decision I make is now filtered through the lens of how could this affect the kid. Now, when I first realized I was pregnant, I never thought I would see his father again. Everything I did was under the assumption I would be doing it alone, which I knew would make things harder on me in many ways, but on the other hand, it meant I would never have to see my baby cry because daddy broke a promise again. It was what it was, pros and cons. I knew I'd have to explain to my son someday that I didn't know how to find his father. I was prepared for that. What I wasn't prepared for was ever having to make a decision of introducing my son to his father or not. That is a whole different ballgame. It was like the rug was pulled from underneath me. I couldn't say, oh, it is what it is, pros and cons anymore. I'd have to make a decision. And my son would have to live with whatever decision I made. That wasn't something I took lightly. Of course, I would rather that my son have a good father than not. 2 loving parents are better than 1, but I didn't know. It was impossible to tell how things would work out in the future. All I could think of was, if I tell this guy, he can take my son. If I tell this guy, he can take my son. A judge can award him custody of my son, and I won't be able to do anything about it. I don't know how to describe how terrifying that thought is. The thought of my helpless, innocent baby being outside my reach. If something bad were to happen to him during that time, he couldn't even tell me. It's not that I thought something bad would happen. I'm not anti-men or anti-trucker or anything like that. I don't think all men are evil. It was just this idea that once I tell the baby daddy, I've done something I can't undo and anything might happen. You can think I'm horrible, selfish, and narcissist, the worst kind of female, whatever. None of that matters to me. What's best for my son is the only deciding factor. And in case you didn't realize, I eventually did make the decision to reach out to the baby daddy. I did want to get to know him a bit before saying anything, but when he figured it out, I didn't lie. I could have, but in the end I decided the kid deserved to know his dad, and if I lied right then, I could be throwing away that chance. Since he clearly only agreed to meet me because he figured out what happened. I don't feel like I did anything wrong by being cautious about it. Anyway, hopefully that clears things up. You all might still not like me or understand me, but that's how I feel. OP adds another update and says some people ask for more updates on my story. This update isn't very exciting, but to be honest, I didn't expect any of this to be very exciting to strangers outside of the handful of people who originally gave me advice. I'll be posting updates here from now until I don't feel like it anymore. Anyway, the paternity test came back positive. Duh. And baby daddy, I should probably start calling him a fake name. I'm going to call him Steve from now on because of someone's comment that made me laugh. Immediately flew to my place and showed up on my porch with a dozen roses. He confessed that he had never stopped thinking about me since our first encounter, and I confessed the same. We immediately went to go make another baby. He then proposed marriage and we're planning on our wedding and honeymoon in Paris. But then, while we're at the store picking out a wedding cake, a team of assassins attacked the bakery and we had to flee. It turns out he's a billionaire in the mafia and he was only pretending to be a trucker as a cover, but his enemies found him. Now we're on the run and I'm pregnant with our next baby named Steve Jr. It really sucks to be on the run while pregnant. I gotta stop and pee all the time, but assassins keep popping up at the gas stations. I'm joking. OP, just jumping in here. When OP said we immediately went to go make another baby, I thought, hold up a second. OP continues saying, joking, sorry. It is just amusing to me that people are invested in my life. I couldn't resist the drama. Okay, here's the real update. The paternity test came back positive and Steve and I have been texting back and forth and talking on the phone. We still need to figure out a good time to meet up, so that hasn't happened yet and I don't know when it will. Apparently Steve passes by my town a lot, but not always at a convenient time to stop for a visit. Anyway, I found a little bit more about him as a person and told him more about me, just getting to know each other. I've also sent him every picture of the kid. I'm still going to call my son Kiddo since I actually call him that in real life. If you don't like it, deal. I could find and pretty much told him the entire story of the kid's life up until this point to every mundane detail. Steve has been pretty mellow about everything so far and doesn't really seem either upset or excited about anything. But I guess since he figured out what happened a while ago, he doesn't have much reason to be shocked. I'm nervous but also excited. Obviously, if everything works out, I'm going to be thrilled that kid gets to have a dad. I don't really have any specific concerns that things won't work out. I'm just nervous in general because I don't know what's going to happen, and becoming a mum has made me a paranoid wreck. Miscellaneous things. Steve says he doesn't have any other kids, to his knowledge, but he usually uses protection. That was out of character and reckless moment for both of us, so he most likely doesn't. Steve asked me frankly if I was intentionally trying to get pregnant that night. It might have seemed that way because I told him I had condoms and then I couldn't find one. But no, I legit just forgot where they were, and in the heat of the moment we were both drunk and stupid enough to carry on anyway, rather than putting our clothes back on and going out to buy some. I found out Steve's ethnicity. To put it simply, he's mixed. I'm not going to list all his ethnicities because that would start to get too specific. He speaks the language of one of his ethnicities as a second language and sent me some YouTube channels that have some children's songs in that language so the kid can be exposed to it, so we've been listening to those. I think it's super cool. Some of my friends' kids who I babysit are now super into it. Maybe they're all grew up bilingual in insert name of language here, in the middle of insert name of mostly white small town in a mostly white state here. Some people have pointed out that it's going to be important for the kid to have other people in his life that are connected to his culture on his father's side. I will admit, this isn't something I gave a lot of thought to, and you aren't wrong. Something that kind of hit me was all the comments about how unusual it is to see an Asian trucker. To be honest, I never thought of that. Yeah, if I hear the word trucker, I'll always imagine a fat white guy. I don't mean this to be in an offensive way, but I didn't really think of anything of meeting an Asian trucker. Seeing all the comments made me think, like, what if my son wants to be a trucker when he grows up? Are people going to say it's weird because he's Asian? That's not right. He should be able to be whatever he wants without people thinking it's weird. I don't care if he wants to be a trucker, mechanic, ballerina, pro athlete, cop, waiter, none of the above. All of the above. Like, I know the comments weren't poorly intentioned, but the idea of my son ever hearing that it's weird for him to do something because he's Asian kind of broke me. I know it's not the same, but I grew up hearing that I was weird to do things I loved because I'm a girl. I already decided that long ago my son can be as masculine or feminine as he wants, and if anyone has shit to say about it, they would have to go through me. But then there's this whole other angle I never considered that he will probably experience, and I don't know anything about it. So yeah, I'm glad he will have his dad in his life, and really just more family in general. Steve hasn't told them about the kid yet, but he says he's not worried they'll be disapproving or anything. He's just waiting for the right time to break the news. My family is totally disapproving, and I've pretty much stopped talking to my parents since they're mad I refused to give kid up for adoption to my aunt and uncle. I'm totally rambling now. I guess the other thing people commented about was child support. Turns out Steve isn't doing very great financially right now, and his family is going through some serious hardships that he's been helping them with. So he asked if he can pay me back child support later. I just told him not to worry about it. I really don't need back pay. I don't need child support at all. I don't want to wrangle any money from him, and any money he gives me for kid, it should be because he wants to. I give kid stuff because I love him and want to take care of him. If his dad gives him anything, it should be for the same reason, not because he has to. I also told him just in case, if he doesn't want to be kid's dad, he can walk away right now and never contact me again. I won't go after him in court or anything. I don't want to introduce kid to any father who thinks of him as a burden or an obligation. He assured me he genuinely does want to meet him and be a part of his life, so that's good. Anyway, yeah, that's the update for now. I'll post again when Steve gets a chance to come and meet the kid. By the way, on my last update, I think I got a little carried away arguing with people who apparently didn't even read my post. This time I'm going to try and make an effort not to do that. I was a little caught off guard, but now that I'm prepared in case of any of these updates get a lot of comments again, I think I'm more mentally prepared to just let people be stupid without it getting to me. Basically what I mean is, I'll no longer be replying to people who say I hate men because I don't. If I hated men, why would I have a son? Or I hid my son from his father for a year for accusing me of anything else that I didn't do. And I'm glad for OP, Steve, and the child that things seem to be moving in the right direction. One thing that sort of, didn't feel quite right to me, I must say, is about the whole child support and saying, you don't have to supply child support. Because for me, that money's not for OP. It could be for the child's future. It could be for their college. It could be like the savings account OP previously mentioned. And I kind of get that you don't want to cause any resentment early on. You don't want to start demanding like, oh, I want child support now, because, it could cause all sorts of issues and damage your relationship when you're only just starting to like form this relationship, if you like. But I think at some point, maybe when you're more stable or whatever happens, I think that should be in place, you know, official, written down somewhere, because it is for the child's future, really, isn't it? But I do wish you all the best going forward. You know, Opie sounds like a very real person in this story and what they're going through. And there was lots of varying comments on that, as Opie said. Some people saying you withheld the baby from the father for a year, etc. Other people saying that they can understand Opie's concern and they were more cautious, and everything in between, really. But what do you guys make of this situation? Put yourself in OP's shoes. How would you deal with that? What would you be thinking in that moment? Like, just stood there, and let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.